Welcome to our deep dive into a crucial health topic. Today we're exploring Rick Disler's book, Understanding and Managing Adrenal Insufficiency, a practical guide for living, thriving, and staying safe with adrenal insufficiency. Rick, the founder of My Adrenal Life, has crafted a comprehensive resource drawing from both medical guidelines and real-world experience, largely inspired by his wife's journey. Rachel, this book isn't just an overview, it's a detailed roadmap for patients and caregivers, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Rick Disler presents adrenal insufficiency not just as a medical condition, but as a lifestyle to manage. The book's strength lies in its practicality. It breaks down complex medical concepts into short, digestible chapters, offering emergency tools, wearable tracking guides, and detailed instructions for caregivers. It's designed to be a quick reference, whether you're dealing with immediate symptoms or planning for long-term stability. And crucially, the book provides appendices and checklists you can print and keep in your red folder.
The sheer breadth of topics covered is remarkable. He starts by laying a foundational understanding of adrenal insufficiency itself. Could you elaborate on what exactly adrenal insufficiency is and why cortisol is so central to it?
Certainly. Adrenal insufficiency is a condition where the body fails to produce enough cortisol. Cortisol is often labeled as just a stress hormone, but Disler clarifies it's a survival hormone. It's responsible for energy regulation, blood pressure balance, immune stability, and stress response. When those levels are insufficient, the entire system struggles. He identifies three main types: primary, or Addison's disease, where the adrenal glands themselves are damaged; secondary, when the pituitary gland doesn't release enough ACTH to stimulate cortisol; and tertiary, often from long-term steroid use affecting hypothalamic signaling. Regardless of the type, the outcome is the same: dangerously low cortisol levels.
So it's not just about feeling tired, it's about the body's fundamental systems failing. That paints a pretty stark picture. And the book immediately moves into recognizing the body's signals, suggesting that symptoms are often subtle at first. How challenging is it for someone with this condition to really tune into those early warnings?
It's incredibly challenging. Disler points out that low cortisol rarely starts with dramatic symptoms. Instead, it's things like irritability, shakiness, a sudden energy drop, or brain fog. People describe it as a wave or a dip. Because cortisol affects blood sugar, blood pressure, and fluid balance, symptoms can also include lightheadedness, headaches, or blood sugar swings. The book stresses that learning to recognize these early, often subtle shifts is one of the most critical skills to develop. It's about a deep level of self-awareness.
That sounds like a constant, vigilant effort. And then there's the concept of the daily cortisol rhythm. How does that natural rhythm, or lack thereof, complicate management for someone reliant on replacement steroids?
It's a huge complication. Our bodies naturally have a diurnal cortisol cycle, peaking in the morning and tapering at night. With adrenal insufficiency, we rely on replacement steroids like hydrocortisone or prednisone. Disler explains that no medication perfectly mimics this natural rhythm. Hydrocortisone acts quickly and wears off quickly. Prednisone lasts longer but can cause dips. This means many patients feel stronger in the morning but are vulnerable in the evening as the medication wears off. Understanding this helps manage expectations and plan the day strategically, timing meals, hydration, and activity to support those fluctuating levels.
So managing adrenal insufficiency isn't just about taking a pill, it's about a constant, informed dance with your medication and your body's responses. One of the chapters that immediately struck me was stress dosing and preventing crashes. This sounds absolutely vital for safety.
It's not just vital, it's survival. Disler emphasizes that healthy adrenal glands boost cortisol instantly during any stress, illness, pain, exertion, or emotional upset.
With adrenal insufficiency, that automatic response is gone. So stress dosing isn't an extra step, it's replacing that essential physiological response. Failing to stress dose early when symptoms appear can rapidly escalate into a full crash or adrenal crisis. He clearly states, quote, "It is far safer to take a small boost earlier than to wait until symptoms spiral," end quote.
That makes perfect sense. So it's about proactively increasing medication when the body demands more cortisol. But how do you determine when and how much to increase? That seems like it could be a challenging balancing act to master.
It requires meticulous self-observation and tracking. The book covers tools like symptom logs and wearables that help individuals identify their personal triggers and vulnerability windows. While there's no universal rule, specific situations like fever, vomiting, diarrhea, infections, or major pain always require increased dosing, often doubling or tripling the usual amount. It's about learning your body's unique pattern of vulnerability to prevent a crisis.
It seems like understanding illness management and sick day rules would be a direct extension of that stress dosing concept, especially since illness can be such a profound stressor.
Exactly. Disler dedicates an entire chapter to this. Illness, even a mild cold, dramatically increases cortisol needs. He states that the general rule is simple, quote, "Fever, vomiting, diarrhea, infection, or severe pain always require increased steroid dosing," end quote. He suggests doubling or tripling the usual dose. Vomiting is particularly dangerous because medication absorption is compromised, often necessitating emergency injections. Hydration with electrolytes is also critical, as low cortisol leads to rapid sodium and water loss.
It sounds like a tightrope walk. And I noticed the book also extensively covers hydration, electrolytes, and heat sensitivity. I wouldn't have immediately connected heat with adrenal insufficiency in such a critical way.
It's a huge connection, and Disler explains it thoroughly. Cortisol maintains sodium, potassium, and water balance. Insufficient cortisol leads to sodium loss, dehydration, low blood pressure, and dizziness. Heat compounds this by increasing fluid loss and cortisol demands. Even mild heat, like a warm shower, can trigger symptoms. Maintaining electrolyte balance is crucial to prevent crashes, often requiring higher than average sodium intake, especially in warm environments or during illness.
So, managing fluids and electrolytes is just as important as managing medications, and with all these demands on the body, energy pacing and activity management must be equally critical.
Absolutely. Disler describes pacing as the art of structuring your energy in a way that prevents dips, stabilizes your rhythm, and protects your cortisol reserves. Unlike healthy individuals whose bodies automatically increase cortisol during activity, someone with adrenal insufficiency draws from a fixed supply. This leads to what he calls a boom and bust pattern if not managed. Pacing means breaking tasks into smaller steps, alternating activity with rest, planning demanding tasks for stronger periods, and generally being highly intentional with energy expenditure. It's not about restriction, but protection.
It sounds like living with adrenal insufficiency demands a completely different understanding of one's own body and its limits. This brings us to wearables and tracking tools. Are these devices truly accurate enough to provide meaningful data for such a sensitive condition?
Disler argues they are invaluable. While they don't measure cortisol directly, they provide real-time data on how the body responds to stress, exertion, and sleep, revealing patterns before symptoms become obvious. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is particularly useful. A significant drop in HRV or a rise in resting heart rate can signal increased cortisol demand or stress. The book emphasizes that wearables enhance intuition. They don't replace it. They provide objective data that, when combined with symptom journals, can identify triggers and help prevent crashes.
That's a powerful argument for integrating technology. And what about emotional stress and overstimulation? Is that as impactful as physical stressors on cortisol demand?
Disler says it's often overlooked but can have an equal or even greater impact. The body doesn't distinguish between emotional and physical stress. Both activate the same physiological pathways that demand cortisol. Arguments, overwhelm, sensory overload, all can rapidly deplete reserves. This can lead to delayed crashes hours after the stressful event. Recognizing these emotional and sensory triggers and planning for recovery or preventative stress dosing is a key part of self-management.
So the book suggests that even our mental state has a direct measurable impact on the body's cortisol needs. This reinforces the idea that managing adrenal insufficiency is truly holistic. And for all these factors, physical, emotional, environmental, recognizing early warning signs of an adrenal crash seems like the ultimate goal.
It is, and Disler calls it one of the most important skills to develop. Crashes rarely come out of nowhere. They often begin with subtle signals, a sudden energy drop, shakiness, nausea, chills, brain fog, or irritability. These are your body's alarm system, indicating cortisol isn't meeting demand. The book emphasizes that responding early, whether with stress dosing, hydration, cooling, or rest, is crucial to prevent escalation to a full crisis. It's about partnering with your body, not pushing through.
This whole approach requires immense self-awareness and self-advocacy. How does Disler guide readers through navigating the medical system and preparing for emergencies, which can often be intimidating?
He makes it a central theme. Chapters are dedicated to navigating medical care and self-advocacy, and preparing for emergencies and adrenal crisis response. Disler acknowledges that adrenal insufficiency is often misunderstood, making self-advocacy essential. He advises patients to arm themselves with knowledge, speak confidently about symptoms, bring logs and wearable data to appointments, and, crucially, know when to escalate concerns or seek a different provider. For emergencies, he stresses that preparation is not optional, it's essential for survival. This includes having an emergency injection kit, knowing how to administer it, wearing medical alerts, and having a written emergency plan for EMS and ER staff. He even provides templates for these critical documents in the appendices.
That level of detail is empowering. It means not just understanding the condition, but understanding how to operate within a system that might not always understand you. And beyond managing crises, the book transitions to living with confidence and clarity, which sounds like a journey toward rebuilding one's life. What does that look like?
This is where the book really shifts focus from reaction to intention. Disler describes rebuilding not as returning to who you were before adrenal insufficiency, but as creating a life that works with your physiology. It's about consistent routines, emotional rebuilding, and redefining success. He talks about rediscovering new strengths like patience and resilience. It also means redefining limitations and possibilities, understanding that capacity can grow with stability, and pursuing goals differently but just as meaningfully. It's a profound act of self-respect and intentional living.
That idea of redefining success is particularly poignant. It's not about achieving less, but about achieving differently and sustainably. The book then takes a deeper dive into specific crisis types: heat, illness, and exertion. What are the key distinctions here that patients need to grasp?
The distinctions are critical for rapid, accurate response. Disler breaks them down. A heat crisis is often the fastest and most dangerous, increasing cortisol demand, sodium loss, and dehydration rapidly, sometimes within minutes. An illness crisis is the most common, driven by infection, inflammation, fever, or GI issues, developing over hours to days. An exertion crisis occurs when physical activity, stress, or even long conversations exceed available cortisol, causing sudden fatigue or shakiness. Understanding the specific triggers and symptom patterns for each type allows for targeted intervention and more accurate stress dosing, preventing escalation. He outlines clear actions for each.
This level of specificity underlines the precarious balance involved. And then there's a fascinating chapter on how adrenal insufficiency affects blood sugar, anxiety surges, and adrenaline shocks. Could you explain what Disler means by adrenaline shocks and why they're often misunderstood?
This is a really important insight. Disler explains that these sudden anxiety, irritability, trembling, and intense adrenaline spikes are often biochemical, not psychological. When cortisol is too low, the body activates emergency pathways, releasing adrenaline to raise blood pressure and keep glucose from dropping further. This results in overwhelming symptoms that are frequently misinterpreted as panic attacks or anxiety disorders. But for someone with adrenal insufficiency, they are, quote, physiologic survival responses, end quote. The book provides mechanical steps to stop these surges, like stress dosing, salt, carbs, and lying down, because they address the hormonal root cause, not just the emotional manifestation.
That's a revelation for many, I imagine, shifting the blame from emotional weakness to physiological need. So if wearables show instability before you feel it, and adrenaline surges are biochemical, it seems like the book really tries to empower individuals with objective data and understanding. How does Disler tie all this together into building a home environment and handling the necessary medical documentation?
He does so very practically. Disler dedicates chapters to making your home a, quote, supportive, protective, and energy-efficient space, end quote. This means creating hydration and electrolyte stations, ensuring temperature control, setting up recovery spaces, and organizing medications for clarity. It's about minimizing everyday energy drains. For medical documentation, he emphasizes that adrenal insufficiency is often invisible, so a, quote, paper trail that reflects reality, end quote, is crucial. He details what providers should document, how to track symptoms for evidence, and how to use a medical binder as proof for insurance, disability, or workplace accommodations. It's about proactive advocacy, transforming private struggles into recognized medical needs.
It sounds like Rick Disler has provided an incredible service to the adrenal insufficiency community, not just with medical information, but with a deeply empathetic guide to living well. What's the ultimate message about thriving with this condition?
The ultimate message is one of empowered resilience. Disler argues that thriving isn't about eliminating every symptom or avoiding challenges, but about building a meaningful life supported by awareness, intention, and confidence. It's about knowing yourself deeply, intentionally caring for your body, building supportive environments, pursuing meaningful goals, and moving through setbacks with resilience. He stresses that living with adrenal insufficiency cultivates extraordinary skills and strengths, making individuals profoundly resilient. Quote, "You are stronger than your diagnosis, and you are far more capable than you ever give yourself credit for." End quote.
That's a powerful conclusion, reminding us that knowledge combined with self-advocacy and a strong support system can transform a challenging diagnosis into a journey of empowerment. If you found this conversation insightful, please share this episode with someone who might benefit.